the reality is we can all find a couple hours every couple weeks if we really try and if it's really that important to us. The key that I have found is we need some support from some other people to help us believe that it's important enough for us to do it.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Kelly Pratt, the founder of So Do It, a community helping creative women take action on what matters to them. Listen as we talk about how she created her in-person So Do It salons and her online So Do It society. You'll also hear about what she's creating next. For those of us who have or are creating online programs, it's important to figure out how to create high-quality experiences for our participants. We strive to figure out how to hold on to what works so well in person while also taking advantage of what the internet makes possible. We also want to avoid the things that can make being online feel toxic. We talk about the choices she's made about what online platform she uses for her programs and how she brings some of the best aspects of in-person work to that online space. We also talk about how Kelly networks both online and in person. It's her number one marketing strategy, and she does it with authenticity and without attachment to the outcome. Let's dive right in with Kelly Pratt. Welcome, Kelly. I am so excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
So tell me about why the So Do It movement is so important to you and why it's important to you to help creative women get shit done.
Well, and first of all, I'm going to turn that around a little. It's not actually getting it done that's important. It's about taking action on these things. Our society is very focused on getting it done. And I just want to focus on taking action on these important things. So whether we get it done or not is not the end result. So why is it important? More than 10 years ago, I've been working in the creative industries for most of my career. And more than 10 years ago, I became a coach and certified with a brilliant woman named Martha Beck. And because I've been working in the creative industries from theater, I was a dancer in my 20s, to the film industry for a bulk of my career. When I became a coach, those were the people that I sort of gravitated toward. I started doing workshops, and I was living in a more rural than an urban area, and many of these people that would come to my workshops would do scrapbooking. And so I would ask that question at the beginning of, the getting to know you. I would say, hey, how many of you guys scrapbook? And they'd all raise their hands. So what kind of pages do you do? If you're not familiar with how scrapbooking works, you basically take up one big square page and you do a topic per page. So I'd say, what kind of pages do you do for your scrapbooks for yourself that are about your own desires? And they would look at me with sort of tabula rasa, blank slate. And I would say, so what I mean is, what are the topics that you illustrate for posterity in your scrapbooks that are about your heartfelt desires? And they still kind of didn't get it. And so I said, all right, well, let's skip that definer then. Just tell me about your scrapbooks. Oh, I do them about my kids' gymnastics, about my living room, my last Christmas with the family, about this and that. So granted, these are all very important things for the women that I was serving. One woman even said I did a page about my husband's guns, about their hunting, this is up north in the woods. And finally, one woman said, oh, wait a minute, I think I know what you're talking about. I work full time. I have 3 kids. But I also play oboe in the Fargo Moorhead Symphony. That's for me. And I did a page in my scrapbook about playing in the symphony. And I was like, finally, someone who was doing something that fulfilled her own heart just for herself. And those first like 3 or 4 years of coaching, that has just stuck with me, that women tend to, and this is a broad generalization granted, but because of who we are at our core, we tend to put our own desires and needs behind those of others. And, you know, you may argue with me or you may agree with me, but this is what I've found. And so Do It is about figuring out a way to help the women that I meet and serve pull that thing out off the back burner, out from the drawer, out of the closet, and find a structure that helps them take action on it within the structure of the life that they are leading, whatever that is. And we're not talking about big, giant things. We're talking about, I've been wanting to start doing yoga again, but I don't have time. Oh, I'll write that book when I retire. I will start painting again like I used to before I had kids after they go back to school. So how can I help these women start taking action on those things and make their hearts sing a little bit now? Kind of a structure can I help them create? And so that's what the So Do It movement is. And it comes out of a story of my own, which is when I was in college, my psych professor wrote So Do It on a paper where I had expressed a regret that I had not continued to dance. I was in business school, and I did. I walked across campus, joined a class. Eddie Gasper said, "Would you audition for my company?" I did, and I ended up dancing with his company for about 8 years, a semi-pro company in Fargo, North Dakota, strangely. But he had been Bob Fosse's assistant, so I got some great training, had fun, lifelong friends, and followed a dream. So I want to do that for others.
Okay, so it's not so much that it's either big or small, but it's about helping women take action and be in that
on
action.
Something that's important to them. It doesn't have to be starting a business. It doesn't have to be creating a movement. It doesn't have to be anything except that thing that, and, you know, as a therapist or a coach, you hear this all the time, that I don't have time, I'm too busy. And the reality of that, Annie, is that when you say that, the reality is we can all find a couple hours every couple weeks if we really try and if it's really that important to us. The key that I have found is we need some support from some other people to help us believe that it's important enough for us to do it.
So that takes me to something else I want to ask you about is, what's the structure that you provide? Like, I know you provide salons and you provide a community. Can you tell us about the salons?
Well, and it's kind of evolving right now, but the salon, so this all sort of started coming together in my mind. And as an individual one-on-one coach, I focus on what I call your creative rhythm. And that is every individual has to do something in what is right for them, in a timeline that works for them. Some people need like in-depth, deep dive kind of sessions. Some people like, you know, little drip kind of sessions and so on. So when I was trying to figure out how to do this, I realized, first of all, women are really busy. And again, I'm speaking in big generalizations, but there's a reason why generalizations work, right? We are very busy in many situations. We manage our families. We even women who are CEOs, they have, and I don't have the statistics off the top of my head, but even the largest earners and CEOs are still the ones who do the biggest part of child rearing and management of families and so on. So we have a lot on our shoulders. And so I was, okay, how can I help women find that thing that they're wanting to do, big or small, personal, professional, whatever, and have it still fit within their current framework? The concept of salons popped back into my mind, something I learned about back in, I don't know, high school, college or something, which were in the 17th, 18th century, one of the first places that women were allowed to have a voice where we weren't shuffled off to the kitchen or wherever to do crochet or embroidery or whatever. And we were allowed to actually have a conversation about something important, politics, education, and so on, with the men of the society at the time. And I love that idea. So I thought, I'm going to do some salons, small groups, no more than 9 people, and structure it where it was only every other week. So it's not real impactful in their time, and have it an hour and a half or 2 hours. And then the in-between weeks, I wanted to provide a way for us to connect in some way, whether it was a co-working kind of, come and join and be in the space of other people, or online. And so I found a platform that I use that is not a social media platform in the traditional sense of what we all think of right now, but a platform that allows us to connect and find other people physically near us, and connect in between our physical meetings. As therapists and coaches, I think it's really important to connect face to face. And so I wanted some way for us to first meet in person and then keep that connection going, but not to make this, and our sessions are 13 weeks, which then I found, realized later, oh yeah, isn't that part of a pregnancy? It's like a trimester of a pregnancy. So there's all sorts of little things that kind of fell into place. So we meet 13 weeks.
So over 13 weeks, you meet like 6 or 7 times then?
7 times. And the way that I try and make this comfortable is the 4 kind of core things are: I want you to feel safe in this group. I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel supported, and I want to celebrate whatever it is that you're doing. And we've had women do everything from starting a full business, pivoting their business, writing a book. One woman wrote a book with her granddaughter. And then the next salon she published or got it designed. The next salon she published it. The next salon she marketed it with her granddaughter. You can do anything. Another woman did, she wanted to get exercising again. And so she just used her salon group to keep her going. We do talk about accountability, but we talk about accountability more in the vernacular of ownership, helping you take ownership of this idea, not relying on the rest of the group to keep you accountable. Because then, well, you know this, as soon as you leave an accountability group, then you're not accountable anymore. But we work with one another to help you take ownership of this idea and own it. So far it works. It's fun, and it's women supporting women. And it's just a really wonderful thing.
We'll get right back to the rest of this conversation, but first let me ask you this. Is it time to create your own signature program that will launch the next phase of your business? Let's do it. Apply for the Rebel Therapist 2-day workshop. Just head to rebeltherapist.me to get started. Okay, let's get back to Kelly Pratt. I'm really interested in this idea of accountability and what actually works for accountability and what doesn't. That sometimes I see people signing up for programs thinking that is just going to kind of magically give them accountability. And it's really more complicated than that, right? That sometimes paying for a program does add accountability because now you really want to show up for yourself and get your money's worth. But there isn't automatic outer accountability magic. Like there really needs to be a structure, a process that works for you individually. And I think that means knowing yourself, knowing what actually motivates you. And yeah.
I think it's the knowing yourself, and that's where the kind of the pivot point between being accountable and taking ownership of it. Yeah, you can pay. I think there is definitely that. As business owners, we go, okay, if I do a free program, are people going to take it seriously? And, surely I've dealt with that as a business owner also. But honestly, even with the free program, if they feel like they're taking ownership. And part of that is when the other people become invested in your idea. And so that's where that, the second of my four things. So you feel safe within this group of 9 of us, up to 9 people, then you feel seen. And so when our first meeting is all about your it, I call it, what's your it? When I say, what's your it? Oh yeah, well, I'll do it when, right? So they get to tell us what it is and why it's important. And everybody sitting around that table with them is like, oh, that's great. I love that idea. And that helps them take ownership. Oh, really? And you can just, here I'm, this is audio, but people start sitting up straighter and really? It's, you think so? They start feeling and taking ownership of it. And so that's where the accountability, there's the shoulds go away. As my mom used to say, stop shoulding on yourself. That's when the shoulds go away and the I get to start to take over for them, and they start taking ownership. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I see the same thing happen in my mastermind groups when, and in this case, it's about therapists creating new programs and, much like what you've created. And it's like when people in the mastermind start to see their ideas reflected in the eyes of the people listening to them, and they start to feel the other people's excitement about those ideas, it's almost like the Velveteen Rabbit. It's like they feel real and they can see exactly how this is okay. I've got something here, and I can't just walk away from it now because I've a community of people who are excited about it.
Yes, exactly. And a really good example of that is CJ, the woman who I told you wrote the book with her granddaughter. She and her granddaughter Lily had been talking about doing this for a really long time. And when we were talking, she's also a coach. And when we were talking, I was explaining to her this concept. She's like, this is exactly what we need. We need some structure around this. We need some other people who believe in the idea with us. And so we did it. And the book is out there now, and her granddaughter has now gone off to college. She was 16. And that was, this is kind of an aside, but for me, part of my dream is I love the way that women support one another. And I loved having, some women who were in their 50s and 60s in the group. And then we had this 16-year-old. So there were women all different ages in this group adding to this project. And it was that support that helped them bring this dream together. And it was really important for her and her granddaughter to have, had this support around an idea that they'd had for so long.
Amazing. Do people actually work on the things ever during the sessions, or are the sessions times to reflect, talk about it, figure it out?
And that's a good question. This has been an evolving process. I'm a big launch and learn kind of person. I launched this thing with a bunch of trusted people I didn't charge anything for it the first trimester. And I divide my year into trimesters. It's all sort of come around that because I find that women's years tend to revolve around I feel like my new year is September. People's kids go back to school. New Year feels like September to me. So we start in January, September, and then we do a sprint in the summer. So we launch and learn. And the way that it goes now is the sessions are mostly for sharing and getting feedback. When we're in person, the formal salons. The in-between sessions, depending on what your it is, if you're painting, you're not going to be doing it with other people there because you have to be in your studio. However, with the platform that is our online community, we can have kind of virtual co-working. And so the co-working time in between, people will come if they're writing or they're doing something like that, then they will come and work on it in concert with others, or they will log in and do sort of a virtual co-working time where they'll, post, okay, guys, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for the next 2 hours. So we will do some virtual co-working, or they'll just check in. That has been evolving. And as a solo business owner, I'm trying to figure out how to manage all of that. If I have 2 or 3 salons going at once, do I have one co-working? You know, there's all sorts of things that I'm trying to figure out. But yes, so the answer is no. During the actual salons, that's more about sharing, and we kind of do it talking stick style, where one person gets to share for 2 or 3 minutes. We write on index cards, and very, very similar to masterminds. And then we get to share afterwards, but we don't, no crosstalk, all that kind of stuff. And then the in-between meetings is where you actually get to work on your thing if you want to, or do it virtually. And then we each have a private group. Each salon has their own private group within our online community where they can share privately or share within the big community as well.
Amazing. And then you also have a separate online community. Is that right? Do you have a program where people can be just online working with you?
Yes. Yeah. And that is really evolving right now. I have this online community where if you only want to be a part of that without being part of the salons, you can. That is evolving at the moment. And I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I think it's going to turn into, right now it's just my business. But I am at the point of kind of wanting to turn it into more of a village, kind of, where I invite other people like me who are serving women like the ones that I'm serving to, I find, and maybe I would imagine you find this too, but all of the women that I serve are out there looking for similar things, but different topics. There are women who are writers. There's a big thing happening here in St. Paul this weekend called Women of Words, a big conference. There's a lot of writers, a lot of women who want to write books. Well, I'm planning on turning my online community into more of a village where people can find a lot of things that they need, kind of a co-opetition is the word that I've run across for the last several years since my coach training. Cooperative competition. One-stop shop where people can find people like you and me and whomever else. And then we can have big conversations about lots of stuff. So yes, I have an online community where you can just join that and then wander the village green and see other stuff. And then possibly join a salon if you feel more that you need more one-on-one stuff.
Very exciting. I like how you're talking about this village also, in that you're kind of taking what works about being online and you're really curating an experience so that you're getting rid of a lot of the things that don't work well for people about being online.
Yeah.
Having sense of overwhelm or a sense of kind of, well, tell me about that. What are you noticing you want more of in this new community and what you want less of?
What I want less of is I want less of the feeling that you're being, well, and this is, I don't like to speak in negatives, but I want to take away the feeling that people, that our clients are being watched, and I want them to feel safe. Going back to the safe, seen, supported, and celebrated. I also, and this is where I'm in a bit of a challenge moment right now as I'm creating this. I kind of have 2 ideal client bases as I'm morphing my online community into something. It's not just the individuals like CJ, the woman who wrote the book with her granddaughter. It's not just those individuals. It's also the people like you, Annie, for instance, who are serving those individuals, because she is also a coach, but she's also a person who wrote a book, right? So my ideal clients in this new community are people like you and I who are creating businesses, who are talking to the same people. And there are so many decisions that we need to make as small business people. What platform do we choose? What are we going to sell our courses? Are we going to sell our groups? How do we get support as small business people? I need a mastermind, but here I am creating them for these other people, but how do I get support? And so what I'm hopeful that this village will create is, like that little town that as you're driving along in your road trip that you find and you just feel like you found your people. And so I'm hopeful that that the group that I come up with, that will be the content creators within this village that I'm creating, will also be people who are getting from it. And then we will all invite all of our clientele. And so it's going to be very much a lot of cross-pollination. So I'm hoping to take some of the effort off of the backs of some of those of us who are providing content out there. And then from within the village, you can send people down the road to your own website. But it'll be a gathering place for us online, where then you can, invite them in and then send them off for the bigger stuff out there. But gosh, let's make it easy for our clients to find the things they need. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel seen. I want them to discover the other people who I discover in my trips around the internet, in the different communities, like how you and I met online. I want to make it possible. I'm a connector, and I want to make it possible for everyone to find each other. Kind of use the internet for what it's wonderful for, and take some of the fear and the ickiness away, right?
Yes.
Make it a safe space.
That sounds really cool. So how are people finding you at this point? How are your clients, your salon participants finding you?
I'm sort of in the vernacular of the Martha Beck world, she's who I did my certification and training with 10 years ago. I am in the dreaming and scheming phase again, which, the change cycle, you go through this over and over and over. But right now people are finding me. I do a lot of in-person networking. So right now, people are finding me word of mouth, and through the online networking that I do. I have 2 or 3 communities that I love online, and I find people that way, just through online networking. And then also my one-on-one clients often find me through the Martha Beck site, where I'm listed as a coach. So that's where a lot of people find me as a coach. But to be honest, I'm not really doing much marketing right now because my community is in flux.
Okay. But then the online networking, and that's how you and I met.
Yeah.
So online networking, the way that you do it, well, just from what I've observed, which is similar to how I do it, is like you see someone who you like, who you find interesting,
mm-hmm.
and you just truly connect, like without any expectations.
Right.
And that is marketing.
Say hi. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I don't know about you, but that was a big mind shift for me this last year, because I kept saying to myself, and I'm guessing coaches and therapists have this issue, I stink at marketing. Well, guess what, guys? Networking is marketing. And I like to talk to people. I mean, if we're going to be coaches and therapists, we better like to talk to people. And so it was a real mind shift for me when I realized, well, guess what, Kelly? Networking, going and talking to people over coffee, that's marketing. So that's how I market, is I talk to people. And talking with my fingers by, commenting on something you said or replying to something that you commented on, that's online. That's how I do it. But it's not... I was never comfortable in the traditional social media space. And I don't know why that is, but I've never been comfortable in traditional social media. I am now in the more insulated communities than I was in traditional social media. I don't know why that is, but.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense to me from everything you've said about wanting to be in safe, productive spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's actually a big takeaway for a lot of listeners, is to think about what are the online spaces where they feel most comfortable actually networking and getting to know people, whether that's going to be the bigger spaces like Instagram, or whether it's going to be getting themselves into smaller, more intimate online situations.
Yeah. And how do you find those? And I think, podcasts and things like this, listening between the lines, right, to the kind of the core values behind the speakers and the people who are building these communities and building the businesses. The platform that I am using to build my community, I did a lot of research. I started my community in 2016, so it's almost 3 years ago. And I did a lot of research, and a big reason why I'm on this particular community is because of the core values that I was able to identify behind the woman who started the community. It's called Mighty Networks, and the woman is Gina Bianchini. And I listened and I read and I researched, and to me, it's very, very important to trust the why behind the company that I'm doing my work with.
Agreed. That's where I've got my community. We're moving over. We're recording this at the end of September, and we're moving all of our programs this fall over to Mighty Networks. And we're not having any more I think it'll be as of November 1st, we're not going to have anything going on Facebook anymore. And I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited to be, not having everybody have to go over to Facebook whenever they interact with my business or want to ask me questions, that there's this safe, right, cozy community now.
Well, and it's the safety thing. And I feel comfortable that I can say to anyone who wants to interact with me, come over here. And if they resist, that's their choice. But I want to feel comfortable that I know that your information that you share with me is safe, and that no one else is going to be doing anything with your information that you're not going to be comfortable with. So to me, that's worth maybe having one or two people, or however many, not follow me there. And I think that's going to be changing. So the safety piece is really important to me. The integrity piece is really important. So
absolutely. Now, if you could time travel to when you started this business, what would you tell the Kelly of that time? And maybe one thing that is more kind of just nitty gritty or tactical, and one thing that's a mindset thing.
Oh, I guess the one thing that I am challenged by the most is trying to do this by myself. And if I could go back to the beginning, I started this phase of my business. I just noticed LinkedIn says I've been doing this for 11 years. Well, yes, I've been a coach for 11 years, but this particular iteration I've been doing since summer of 2016. And I would spend more time working to find that integrative partner, someone who believes and who really buys into my dream, who is the doer more than the visionary, to help me do some of the things, because I have the big ideas, but sometimes I get really exhausted with the doing of it. So I think that's probably what I would do, is spend more time on the finding someone who was a doer piece, because it's a lot of work building and maintaining an online community.
It absolutely is. Anything else? Any other advice for your former self?
Probably just to really trust in the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Really trust in the idea, and step out more with the idea, and not apologize for it, and own the fact that I am a visionary, and be okay with that, and not try and be a doer. Because I've been in business for a really long time, and I have found as I get older that the visionary piece of my personality, or the quick start piece, if you go by the Colby, I'm very high quick start, it becomes more and more about who I am, and to really honor that, and find support for the low implementer side of who I am, and figure out ways to support that, because that's what's exhausting. I'm sure you found that. Trying to do the things that are not really comfortable and natural to you, that's what's exhausting. Part that gives me energy is the ideation.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate this conversation, Kelly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being a guest. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. You can find out more about Kelly Pratt and the So Do It Society at sodoitsociety.com. Hey, will you do me a big favor? It makes a huge difference if you give us a 5-star rating or even a review. So just before you forget, head over to wherever you're listening to this and give us a rating and maybe even a review. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.